Hello, everybody. Thanks for stopping by. I'm really looking forward to today's cook. We're going to be smoking up a juicy, tender, delicious pork butt, Southern style. So y'all hang around. You're going to enjoy this.
Welcome to Smoking Ass Barbecue.
Okay, we have got 8.5 pound bone-in pork butt, and you can see the bone right down here. I highly recommend that you get a bone-in pork butt. They cook a lot better. The bone adds more flavor. The bone helps it cook more even. So that's what I always try to find. If you can't find a bone-in butt, then go ahead and get a boneless one. It'll cook up just fine. But if you can, look for one with the bone still in. So what I'm going to do, this doesn't need a lot of trimming. I'm going to go around like any flaps like this. That's going to create a problem later on. I'm just going to kind of get some of those out of the way. I don't want to remove much fat, if any, on here. See, just little pieces hanging like that. That's just going to create a problem later on. So you don't really need that. And I'm going to go ahead and pat this side here dry a little bit. So now we're going to flip it over and see on this top side. I don't really need that anymore. There's a fat cap on this top side. Sometimes these are really thick, sometimes they're not. You can see the butcher kind of scalped in a couple places. That's not going to hurt anything. All I want to do, if there's any like really thick spots, take maybe just a little bit off of those, but not much. I'm not really concerned about the fat cap. We'll deal with all that later. A lot of people do them different ways. I always leave my fat cap on. That's the way I've learned growing up. That's the way I've always done them, and I've always had great results with them. So I always leave my fat cap pretty much intact. And that's about all the trimming we're going to do right now. So let's get our seasoning out and get it seasoned up. All right, let's get on with our seasoning here. The only thing that we're going to be using, I'm going to use a little olive oil as a binder, and some paprika, some coarse black pepper, kosher salt, and granulated garlic. This is actually granulated garlic. I'm just using that container. And some turbinado sugar. You can use brown sugar if you prefer to. I like the turbinado sugar. It's not as moist and doesn't clump up and all as bad as regular brown sugar does. So that's what I typically use. There's one very important thing I'd like to mention here. I've seen so many videos on YouTube and so forth. I want you to keep one thing in mind. This pork butt, we're going to season this twice. Okay? We're going to do it now, and we're going to season it again later on. I've seen so many people, they'll take like 2 bottles of rub and coat this thing an inch thick. And they'll say, oh, it's a big piece of meat. You can't put too much salt on. You can't do this. You can't do that. Well, it is a big piece of meat. But I don't care if you put 5 pounds of seasoning on this outside. It is not going to get on the inside. There's no way it ain't going to do it. So what we're going to do, we're going to season our outside. And then later on when it's done, we're going to season the inside. It's one of the great things about a pork butt. So we want to season this outside good because this is going to be a little different texture and a little bit different flavor, and it's going to be mixed in with our pulled pork. So we definitely want seasoning on this, and we want it seasoned good. But there's no need to put 100 pounds of seasoning on top of the thing. It ain't going to do any good. And I don't know about you, but when somebody tastes my pork butt, I don't want them to say, oh, that's good. What kind of rub did you use? I want them to taste it and say, damn, that's the best pork butt I've ever tasted. So a lot of people like to use mustard as a binder. That's a real popular thing, or mayonnaise, some of those things. I do not like thick binders like that. First of all, with the mustard, everybody swears, oh, you can't taste it at all once it's done. I can taste it. I've done it several times, and I can taste the mustard after it's cooked. It's a very light taste. I like mustard, so it's not a bad flavor, but I can definitely taste it, and mustard's just not part of my profile for my spices. So I prefer just to use a little bit of olive oil to help hold it on. Another thing about the mustard is they say, well, it binds the spices and holds it on the surface of the meat. Well, it definitely does. It holds it on the surface and keeps it from falling off the meat, but it also holds it from penetrating into the meat. The mustard's not magic. It's not going to keep it from falling off and then say, okay, well, I'm going to allow it to soak into the meat. So all your seasoning stays up in the mustard. Nothing penetrates. So anyway, I'm not big on the binder thing. So we got our olive oil on here. There are a lot of good rubs on the market. And if you have a favorite one, then by all means, use that. I have a rub that I use sometimes. I make up a rub, and I'm going to list the ingredients here on the video. And also, if you'd like, you can go to my website at outlawbarbecue.com. I'm going to post that, a link on there as well, and you can find all kind of recipes on there. A lot of times I don't take the time to mix up a rub. It's just not necessary. Seasoning a pork butt like this is no different than seasoning your steak. You don't have to mix up a rub to season your steak. You sprinkle salt on it, you eyeball it, and you kind of know when you've got enough salt. Same thing with your pepper, garlic, whatever you're putting on it. Same thing with your salad. You don't mix up a rub to season your salad. Well, you don't have to do that on here. So I'm not going to mix up a rub this time. What I'm going to do, I'm going to give it a good little sprinkle of salt. And I'm going to go over all the sides. Like so, and the back side. The aluminum foil is not wanting to participate in this real well. And we'll just go ahead and get a little salt on this side. See, I mean, you can look and tell, just like with your steak, when you got enough salt on there. Next thing, we'll just get a little pepper. And we'll do the same thing. We'll go over and just keep in mind, just like you're seasoning anything else, you can see how much is in there. We're going to use the exact same ingredients here that we used in the rub. We're just not measuring it out. We're just using our eyes and common sense. Now, if you like more pepper, then go a little bit heavier on the pepper. If you don't like as much pepper, go a little bit lighter on the pepper. And now we're going to get our garlic, our granulated garlic, and we're just going to sprinkle some on there, on the sides, around there, and on there. And we're good with that. Now the paprika, I'm going to use it. The paprika is not going to do anything for flavor. It's just strictly going to be used as a coloring. And believe me, it will definitely make your pork butt look much better in the end. You don't need much of it. That's almost too heavy there. And I'm not really worried about the sides. But I just want to make sure we get a good color on the top and bottom. A little something like that. Now, we are going to put turbinado sugar on here. Everything in the South is sweet. We like sweet tea, we like sweet bread, we like sweet milk, we like sweet ladies, and we like sweet pork. So I'm going to use turbinado sugar. I like to use it because the granules are more coarse. You can use brown sugar if you want to, but the brown sugar has a lot more moisture in it, so it tends to want to clump up with you. Sometimes it's hard to judge just how much you've got on there and that kind of thing. So I prefer using the turbinado sugar, but you can use either one you want to use. Now the sugar, like I say, we like it sweet back in the South. So we'll put a healthy little dose of sugar on here. And this sugar will help us build a good little bark on the outside. And that's going to be important because we want that different texture. Once we pull this and mix it all together, we want those little bits of goodness in there that have just a little bit of texture to them. And most all of this seasoning, 99% of this seasoning we're putting on here right now is going to be in that bark. None of this is going to penetrate more than an eighth, maybe a quarter of an inch into that meat. That's all this seasoning is going to do. And that's why we're going to season it twice. So that is it for our seasoning. And I'm actually not going to cook this until tomorrow. So I'm preparing it tonight. I'm just going to wrap it up now. I'm going to put it in the fridge, let it rest overnight. That's not necessary. If you want to do it the same day, just go ahead and do your seasoning and everything, set it aside. I would let it sit for at least 30 minutes, no more than an hour, and then you can put it right on the smoker. But since I want to start early in the morning and have plenty of time, I'm going to wait till tomorrow. So I'll wrap this up, and I will see you guys in the morning. It is now the next morning, and you can see how beautiful our pork butt looks after resting overnight. If you'll notice, I've got it sitting in a deep pan with a rack, so it's not going to be floating in pork fat the whole cook. I've got the smoker preheating to 275 degrees. It will be ready shortly, and we will get this underway. So I'll meet you outside. All right, we are ready. You've got our smoker preheated. It's running up at 275 degrees. So we're going to go ahead and place our pork butt in here. I'm going to go ahead while we're here. It's going to be a while. I'm going to go ahead and get the thermometer probe in. You want to get down about middle ways to the thickest part. Try not to get next to the bone where you might get a false reading or something. And we're going to monitor this. We're going to wrap this a little bit later on. I'm going to be looking to get up somewhere around 160 to 170 degrees probably before I wrap it. But the main thing I want to watch for before I wrap it, I want to get this bark firmed up where the rub doesn't come off on your finger. I want to get a good color on it. All of that before we wrap it. And if you'll notice now, what we're gonna be watching for is along this top, once it gets up to a certain temperature, this will start splitting and you'll start seeing the fat layer. And also you'll see around on the bone side, the meat will kind of start separating from the bone. And those are the things we're going to be looking for more so than temperature as far as when it's time to wrap. So I'm going to get this closed up and let this little baby cook. I'm going to be using apple wood for our smoke. So let's get it underway and we will be back in a little while. Alrighty, it has been about 2.5 hours and our internal temperature right now is at 131. So I know it's not time to wrap or do any of that stuff, but I do just want to take a quick look. I want to see how the color's coming along, see if the bark's set good, and make sure there's no issues going on that I need to address. So we're just going to take a really quick look and try not to lose any more heat than we have to. And it is looking absolutely beautiful. Damn almighty. Woo! You can see what I was talking about with the fat splitting. That's exactly what we want to see. And look at the color. I mean, my Lord, that is just so beautiful. And a lot of that really is due to the paprika and some to the brown sugar. But you can see what I mean about adding color to it. So that is, whoa, it's looking good. I love it. Okay, we're just going to slide this baby right back in. If I can do it without too big a mess here. Okay, we're just going to close it back up and let it keep cooking. Like I say, probably going to wrap it somewhere around 160, 170. I want that bark on there to get a little more set. I can look at it and tell right now it's not quite ready. I knew it wouldn't be. So anyway, we'll be back in a little bit and check on it again. It has been 4 hours since we first put our butt in the smoker. And I've been monitoring the temperature from up at the house. And right now, internal temperature is sitting at 152. But I've noticed over the last hour or so, the increase in the temperature has slowed down quite a bit. So I'm thinking might be going into an early stall. So what I want to do is take another look at this bark. The color looks great. Everything, fat split, everything's doing just like I wanted it to. I just want to make sure this rub is set, and it's good. I'm just getting a little bit of oil, basically, is all I'm getting. So that is great. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it. I usually wrap somewhere around the 160, 170 range, but that's usually when things get ready for it to be wrapped. I don't know why my shelf is sticky. But anyway, I think it's going into a little bit of an early stall, so I'm going to go ahead and get it out. I'm going to get it wrapped up where we can get on with this cook and get things done. So I'm going to go round up a couple things and get them ready because I don't want to keep this out of the smoker any longer than I have to. I don't want it to cool off any more than necessary. So I'm going to go round up a few things and I'll be right back. Alrighty. Now, when I do my pork butts, I keep it very simple. I don't want to keep this out any longer as possible. I'm going to lose probably at least 10 or 15 degrees just going as quick as I can. And that can affect your cook time considerably. That could cost me another 45 minutes or an hour maybe. What I'm putting in here, this is just plain, you might know a helicopter would come by. This is just plain hot water out of the tap. I want to make sure anything I put in here is warm. I don't want to cool it off. Now, a lot of people at this point, they'll put stuff on top of it, a little more seasoning or sugar or apple juice stuff. I don't really think that's necessary, and anything you put in here now like that is just going to cool it down, and I don't want to do that. I use plain water in there because I want to make sure there's plenty of moisture, but I don't see any need to use apple juice, beer, or any of that kind of stuff. It is not going to flavor anything, so I just use plain hot water, and I'm going to wrap this right in the pan just like it is with foil. And notice I've got the dull side of the foil facing out because the shiny side will reflect more of the heat off of it. So I've been told. So anyway, we're going to put the dull side out. We're going to get it wrapped up here real quick and get it sealed up pretty tight, best we can. I'm going to put it right back in the smoker now. put our temperature probe back in and get on with the cooking. And here's just a quick shot of what it looks like back in the smoker with the temperature probe and so forth in there. So we're going to close her up and we'll keep an eye on it from up at the house and let this puppy cook. And I will be back shortly. Alrighty, we are exactly 6.5 hours into our cook, and we have reached an internal temperature of 203 degrees. So I want to get it out and do our final check now. I'm going to probe it and make sure it's good and tender. That's always the final test. So I'm going to get this thing out and let's take a look at it. Oh, I know this is going to be so good. I can hardly wait. Whew. I ran a little bit later than expected. Look at that. Oh, my goodness gracious. That is sinful. Just damn sinful. Ran a little bit later, so I'm actually filming kind of in the dark out here, and I've never really done that before. So, oh, my God, look at that. Look, I mean, look at that. That is just, holy heck, that is just like peanut butter right there. No doubt in the world that is done. Oh, Lordy. Yes, sirree. I just love doing pork butts. I'll tell you what. Now, I'm going to wrap this back up good and tight. And this is very, very important. Very important. This has got to rest. It has got to rest, just like most meats do. And so all I'm going to do, I'm going to take it in the house. I'm going to set it on the stove. Now, it's got to rest a minimum of 30 minutes. I don't care what your schedule is. I don't care what you're doing. It's got to rest 30 minutes. Now, I'm going to let this rest about 2 hours. And the reason for that is it's got to get cooled off so I can pull it. And the longer the rest, I think the better. So I usually like to let mine rest for 2 hours and then pull it. So I'm going to get it in the house and set it on the stove. And after a while, we'll start back up and go to the next pulling stage. Our pork butt has been resting for a little over 2 hours, so hopefully it's cooled down enough. Bark turned out really pretty. You can see how tender this is. So next thing we're going to do is get it shredded up. We'll just go ahead and get our bone out of there. And all we're going to do is just start. I like to do it with my hands. You can use some tongs, or they have some other tools called like bear claws and wolf claws, those kind of things. They work well too. This is still pretty darn warm. They work well too. I prefer just to get in here with my hands and shred it up. It's just a lot faster and a lot easier. So I'm going to go ahead and get this shredded up, and then we'll be back shortly. Well, somebody just stole a piece of my pork butt. I think that's a compliment. I'll be back in just a minute after I get this shredded up, and we'll move on to the next step. Okay, we have got our pork butt pulled, and we are ready to do our second seasoning. So what I want to start out with, I'm going to get a little mop sauce ready. I don't like to put like straight barbecue sauce or anything on top of my pulled pork because some people don't like barbecue sauce. You can use it for a lot of different things, like in tacos, or you can put it in your eggs in the morning and all that. And you may not want everything to taste like barbecue sauce, and you can always add that later. But what I do like to do is just make up like a little mild sauce. Just think of this kind of like an injection that we didn't inject before. So what I've got here is just a little over a cup or so of apple juice. And I'm just going to add a little bit of barbecue sauce for flavoring. Not a whole lot. I've actually never measured this before. I'm just doing it for the video. I usually just put a little bit in and mix it up and go with it, but we're going to put in, there's 2 good tablespoons. Let's see how that looks. I want to keep it just really thin, mostly apple juice with just a little bit of the barbecue sauce for flavoring. I'm using the KC Masterpiece. That's my favorite sweet sauce. You can, of course, use any kind you prefer. And that's looking pretty good there. Like I say, I just want to add a little bit of flavor. And now what I'm going to do, my pulled pork is still warm, so I don't want to put anything cold on it right now. So I'm going to pop this in the microwave for a couple of minutes and just warm it up a little bit. I'm not cooking it or anything. I just want to warm it up a little bit before I put it on the pork butt. So I'll get this in the microwave and we'll be back shortly. Okay, while our mopping sauce is warming up over there, I thought I'd mention something. I've had a lot of people ask me why a pork shoulder from the front of the pig is called a pork butt. Well, actually, it has nothing to do with anatomy at all. And to kind of put this together, we need to go way back to colonial days up in New England. Back then, pork shoulder was not considered a desirable cut of meat. It was fatty, it was tough, and about the only thing it was good for was cooking in soups and stews where you could simmer it for a long time and tenderize it. So this created a problem for the butchers back then. They had these large cuts of meat that were not good sellers. And of course, they had no refrigeration at the time, which created even more of a problem for them. So what they started doing was taking these pork shoulders and they would put them in these little 3/4 size wooden barrels and set them out in the front area of their shop, and they'd offer the shoulders at a really reduced price. Now, these little barrels were called butts. Now, they probably see where this is going. They would put these barrels out in the front area of the shop, and if somebody was low on money, they would go into the butcher shop and they would look in these little barrels or butts and get this pork shoulder out at a cheap price and buy that. And as time went on, they started saying, okay, well, I'm short of money. I'm going to go down to the butcher shop and I'm going to buy some pork from the butt. And so that stuck around for a while, and then it kind of got shortened to where they just say, okay, I'm going to buy some pork butt. Well, later on, refrigeration came around, new cooking methods came around, and so they no longer needed to put the meat out in these barrels. Still today, the name sticks, and so that's why we call the shoulder a pork butt. And now you know the rest of the story. So let's get our sauce out and get on with this. Okay, I got our little thing of sauce there mixed up. And you can see pork is all pulled. Now, if you, this is the second seasoning we're going to do, like I talked about in the very beginning. You can see we've got some pretty little bits of the outer bark in here. That's going to add some texture and a good little burst of flavor. But the rest of this has no seasoning on it whatsoever. So I'm going to do the same thing I did on the outside. Now, if you used a rub that you mixed up, or bought, whatever, you want to stay with that same profile that you used on the outside. So you can do it individually if you did it that way. If you already have a rub that you used before, you can just do the rub on here. So all I'm going to do, I'm going to give it a good sprinkle of salt. This is all going to be mixed down in it. Oh, we got that. And just throw some coarse black pepper on top. Not too much. Mama wouldn't like that. And a little granulated garlic. But basically, all we're doing is just creating our rub right on top of it. And then, of course, we got to have our brown sugar to be Southern style barbecue. And now I'm going to take that thin down sauce that I made, and we're just going to pour that right over the top. I'm probably not going to use all of this. Like I say, it's we're not saucing the meat. This is just adding a little flavor to it. So we don't want to get too much because somebody may not like barbecue sauce. So we just want to add that in the apple juice as a little bit of flavor mixed in, and get our seasonings there mixed in real well. I'm trying to do this left-handed so I can keep one hand clean, and I'm making a pretty good mess doing it, but I'm sure y'all understand. So, okay, that's about it. Now you can see it's not like coated in barbecue sauce. It's just mixed in as just like a seasoning. So that is pretty much it. That is ready right there. I'm going to cover this back up and set it aside, and we'll make us a sandwich or something in a little while. So I'll be back with you in a bit. Alrighty, it has been a beautiful day outside, and we've got our pork butt done. We've got it pulled. We've got it seasoned for the second time. And now it's time for our final reward. We're going to build us a sandwich. So let's get on with that. Okay, let's build us a sandwich. Now, I'm not going to tell anybody what to put on your sandwich. The only real expert on that is you. There's a million things you can put on it. A lot of people put onions and jalapenos. I've seen people put cheese on it. Just a million different things. But if you go in most any barbecue place back in the South and just order a pulled pork sandwich, this is pretty much what you're going to get. A good, basic, delicious pulled pork sandwich. Since we're doing Southern style pork butt, that's the kind of sandwich I'm going to make, just so everyone will know what to expect. The first thing you do is start out with a good helping of meat. You never skimp on your meat with a pulled pork sandwich. Then we're going to add a little sauce. Now this is the same sauce that I used earlier, the KC Masterpiece. I just warmed up a little bit in the oven because there again I don't want to put like cold sauce on my sandwich. So we're just going to drizzle a good bit of that on here. All over. And then an absolute must for any Southern style pulled pork sandwich, you got to throw a few dill pickle chips on top of it. And that is it. That is your basic Southern style pulled pork sandwich. Now, you can dolly that up about any way you want to do it. Generally, you'll have some sides like coleslaw, a little bit of that on there, and maybe a little potato salad to go with it. That's always good. We'll throw a little bit of that on there. And of course, you can go with anything else, baked beans or whatever you prefer. If you don't want to go through all of this, to have a pulled pork sandwich, throw some potato chips on the plate with it, call it a day. It makes a fantastic lunch right there. So there you have it, your basic Southern style pulled pork sandwich. So y'all give this a try, because I guarantee you'll like it.
Thanks for stopping by. See y'all soon.